All right, so this is the Better Book Bureau. So to start off, we're just going to take a look at the code a little bit. So the JavaScript that I was pointing out, obviously we use JavaScript for so much of it. Like here on each of the 3 pages, the header is loaded dynamically. So when the page is loaded, we're going to load the header from the utils. And this really doesn't have all that much in it, but it's loading the header footer. So it's getting that information. It's rendering it with the template. But the example that we used is in the TBR shelf or to be read shelf. So here, JavaScript is used to when the page loads, when the DOM content is loaded, it gets the information from local storage. If there isn't any, it just loads an empty array, an empty list, and then it goes through and it displays that information. And this is a pretty simple function, but it just goes through and it creates a div for each of those elements and a div for the title and the author, and then it just appends them to the body of the page. The third-party API, that one is in the book search. So in book search, there's an event listener. So when the search button is clicked, it's going to collect the author, title, and genre from the input boxes, and then it's going to feed them into our fetch books function. So here we're going to be hitting the openlibrary.org API. This is a free API. It's pretty easy to use. They don't even have API keys. And here I just have it set up to loop if there's an author to append to the URL the author input. If there's a title, same thing with the title. If there's a genre, we add the subject. And then from there, we're just going to be removing any extra ands or question marks just to make sure that we're not adding any weird symbols at the end of that URL that we're using. From there, they ask that you register your application with them just in the header. That way, if they notice lots of requests coming from your application, they know who to contact. So they'll just send you an email like, hey, you're hitting the API too many times. From there, then we just get the information. If it's successful, we will go on to display the results. And the display results is very similar to the display, the TBR information, but it has a couple key differences. So here, where the image is, it checks, if the book has a cover image. So if that information is present in the JSON, then it's going to get the cover because they give us the cover ID. And then we run a separate function. This is just the get cover. They give us this standard URL that you can hit. And it really, here we're just making sure that the URL exists with the fetch request here. And then all we do is return the URL. We don't even have to return the response. This is enough information. We do a fetch request just to make sure that it's a valid URL. And if it returns yes, then we display it using that. If it doesn't work, or if for some reason there's not a cover ID, then we just display no cover available. We then also create a button, add to TBR. All this does is when they click it, it gathers the information, converts it into a JSON, and then it pushes it to local storage. On this one, we're gathering the local storage first, and then we are parsing it into JSON, and we're pushing the new book to the end. So we're just appending essentially to that local storage, and then we put it back. We add it back, and then we just give them an alert. Hey, the book was successfully added. That way they're aware of that. So that's the JSON, the events, the third-party APIs, the JavaScript. So now we'll just take a look at the site. All right, this is the private one. So home, I kept the site super simple because one of my pet peeves with looking for books is looking for books on Amazon or Goodreads or some of these other apps. I feel like they give you so much information, so much other stuff when I just want to see the books related to the title I'm looking for or related to the author or the genre. I don't really want to see all this other stuff. So the search here, we're going to search for, we'll just do card, Orson Scott Card. And it takes a second after you hit enter to start displaying that information. But here now we can see Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, Xenocide, just some of his other books. So just to demonstrate, we're going to hit add to TBR. It was successful. Okay. And then the TBR shelf. So now we have our new book and it's displaying there. If we inspect the page, we can look at the application and we'll see the TBR is stored here in a JSON. If this was something that we were going to put out to production as like an actual product, I'd set up a database so that each user could just store this in the database, because obviously when you switch browsers, when you switch, even from incognito to regular, this data is going to be lost to them. So it's not a super permanent TBR shelf, but like for me on my home computer, this is going to work great because I can search, I can add it to the shelf, and it'll just live there um, as long as I have the browser essentially. So that's the web application. Let's go ahead and make sure we hit all the points. We did. So yeah, thanks. That's Better Book Bureau.